Hello, everyone. Hello, Doctor. Do we have volume? I literally just got home from the airport. I've been home about 20 minutes, just enough time to get everything set up for this live stream today. And I wanted to tell you what happened to the airport because it was kind of weird and it's never happened before. Thank you. I got off the airplane and they said that your baggage will be at C4. So basically you go through security and then there's the carousel. But as I'm trying to go to that area where this conveyor is, there was security there, military guys saying, you're not allowed to go this direction. And I thought, okay, that's a little odd. So I turned around and walked all the way down, to 9 or 10 or 11 and finally cut through. And then I tried to go down the other side, which is the ticket counter. And the ticketing agent said, you can't go that direction. And I thought, wow, they really don't want us going down there today. Whatever's going on down there, it's not good news. So he said, you need to go all the way up to 12 to find your suitcase, which of course, no one at 12 knew. And so everyone's freaking out about where's their luggage. Finally get my luggage. Thank the girl for helping me. And when I got back to the, I got downstairs to where I take a shuttle to go to where my car is parked, the police were there saying, you may not go to the bus stop to wait for the bus that direction either. So not inside, not outside, and not even on the street could you be on that end of the terminal. It was weird. So I did some Googling on Twitter because I thought, let me check and see if I can figure out what the heck's going on because somebody has said something. And apparently there was a unclaimed suitcase. And so there was, that's my guess. That's the only story I could find for today. An unclaimed suitcase that the Dallas News stated had already been claimed. It was all fine, but I was still not able to get through 45 minutes after that had been stated. So maybe we'll see something on the news today. I don't know. As you knew last week, I went to go see family for my birthday this week. And it was great. I had a birthday week instead of a birthday. And it was an ongoing joke, but basically, by saying it's my birthday week, it seemed like I got another gift every single day. Instead of all of them on the first day, which was great. I'm not going to complain about that. I got this awesome little gift. So this is a chocolate egg with a dinosaur inside. And if you're wondering who gave this to me, my mom. And then I got this, which is a little ornament for my tree for next year from Hallmark. Got my own little Nemo, and that came from my mama. And I even got a framed picture of a clownfish in an anemone. See, I said it right. I only had to say it once. And I got this awesome apron that I'll be able to cook food and stay clean, and it's beautiful. So that was a great gift. And then I got home and there was a gift from FedEx waiting for me. Okay, I gotta show you guys a preview first. Let me switch this. So take a look at that. Does anyone recognize that picture? Any of you know this vendor by any chance? Oh, thank you for the birthday wishes. Okay, so this vendor is out of Florida. That's a hint. And Doctor of Welsh Magic got it. Josh Pork Sandwich. So these are all of his lovely zoanthids. Well, this is a small section of his lovely zoanthids. And he was nice enough to send me a small gift, and he just asked for my address and didn't tell me what it was. And so I opened the box, and it was exactly what I wanted. So I thought that was a really pretty picture. But wouldn't it be better if it was a blanket? So I can be under all my favorite zoanthids that I can't possibly afford when I'm watching TV? This is so awesome. I don't know if he sells these. I have no clue, but he had posted the picture. I said, oh man, if that was a blanket, I would use that every day while I'm watching TV. And it's got all the colors, all the kinds, all the ones I don't know the names of. that great? So that was a really cool gift. Now, I don't know if it was a gift for my birthday or not, but it came at the perfect time as far as I'm concerned. And we're in the winter months, so I will be using that when I'm watching TV. And that was awesome. So I was blown away. I took a funny picture with it and sent it to him instantly. And, he was very happy. So I'm going to give him a free plug right now. Josh Pork Sandwich sells zoanthids at the Frag Swaps. He is doing a Frag Swap on February 3rd. So basically, what is that, like in a week or so? Look it up on your calendars. It is at the flfragswap.com website. Admission is $10 for adults. 12 and under are going to get in for free. Military and law enforcement get in for free. So if you're in the military or law enforcement and you're in the area and you're a saltwater enthusiast, you can get in for free. There's going to be a bunch of vendors there. There's a bunch of sponsors. I see Fritz, Seachem, Reef to Reef, ME Coral, Coral Frenzy. There's going to be, of course, lots of vendors, including Josh Pork Sandwich, if you need some of those zoanthids that you saw on my new blanket. And if you guys want to attend, it's going to be in Lakeland, Florida. So anyway, flfragswap.com, and he organized this event. I believe last year about 700 people went. I think this year they're predicting 1,000. You guys in Florida are so spoiled by these beautiful corals. So I want you to, I just wanted to put that on the screen for, 30 seconds or so. And if you guys get it, he wants me to go. He wants me to do a booth or something, but I just got home from a trip, and I've got things to do and customers to take care of. And I got to clean the glass in my tank because I can't even see through the algae right now. It's kind of icky, but that's what happens. Now, today's topic, I actually asked you guys on Facebook about 3 hours ago or 4 hours ago or whatever it was when I was sitting in the airport in Phoenix, and I said, what would you like me to discuss today? Because I really didn't have a lot of inspiration, and unfortunately, I only got 3 hours sleep last night. So I put a brush through my hair, I brushed my teeth, and I put some Visine in my eyeballs so they don't look so red for you. And I needed some inspiration from you all because I have been nonstop helping family with important duties all week. And it wasn't a vacation. I was working, but it was great to be with them. So I'm going to pick some of the topics that are posted on Facebook. If you have not posted a topic and you would love to do it, I know you'll be putting stuff in the chat window, but feel free to put messages right on this page. You'll see a giant thumbs up with a fishy tail. That's my post. And put the topics you'd like me to talk about. And I will be happy to consider adding that to maybe today's discussion or to a future one. Some of the topics you've asked about on today's list have been discussed in the past, and others are upcoming videos that I promise to do. I had a couple of people tell me last week that they really prefer the regular videos over the live stream, and I agree with you. I'll tell you, I love the live stream because I get to talk to about 100 of you at a time and respond to your questions on the spot. And you also remind me of things that I was going to mention, which is great. That's the back and forth of our conversation. But when I do an actual video that is completely polished and beautiful and uploaded without the conversation, I have a lot more time to make sure I'm saying everything correctly and that I'm not saying something wrong. And if I catch it during my edit, I will reshoot that part to say the right words because, last week I said, I called something the wrong name. And I would have caught that if I was editing a video. But with a live stream, you just get what's tumbling out of my head. And while there's a lot in my head, obviously, I'm going to say some things wrong from time to time. And I don't want to confuse you. I want to stay on track with the good videos. And my goal is to do a video each week and then a live stream each Saturday at 2 o'clock. That's what I've been doing. And I plan to continue doing that. I've just needed some time. I've got this huge pump test project that I have got to complete. That's happening this week. But if I can get these couple of hurdles out of my way, I can get back to my normal stuff. This last week, I uploaded a little tiny video about 2 minutes long that you might have seen. It was when I went to Salt Lake City last September, I think it was. And it was one of those things that your iPhone just creates a movie from the pictures and videos of that day. And I thought, I'm going to share that. That seems like a nice piece of eye candy. And it's a little bit more my style than when you're normally seeing these live streams. So anyway, I hear you. I hear you guys on the live stream, and I hear the ones of you that don't like it. I'm trying to keep both of you happy, and I hope that you'll continue to ride along on melevsreef. So one person asked pretty quickly as soon as I had posted, he would love to hear my thoughts on the alkalinity monitors. And so that's a really good topic because that is a new device that has come to market over the last, I'd say, 18 months. And the first one that we saw a prototype of, an actual device, was Jim Welsh's Alkalinity Monitor, which he put together, and I did an interview on my channel. And that video is still on my channel if you'd like to watch it, where he explained what it could do and how it could benefit the hobbyist. And basically, it's a device that will automatically measure your alkalinity as frequently as you would like every single day. And you're probably thinking, whoa, 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 you just talked me into doing tests once a week, and now you're saying multiple tests per day? Well, alkalinity is one of those really important elements in our reef tank. And when it drops or goes too high, it causes some chaos in the tank, way more than high magnesium or high calcium. Alkalinity is one of those ones that we want to nail. We want it dead to rights. And when he came out with this device, he showed it to a lot of different manufacturers, and then one manufacturer basically bought the rights and said, we're going to produce it, and you guys will see it in a year. And then it came out a year later under the Apex or the Neptune Systems umbrella, and it's called Trident. And not only does it measure alkalinity, it measures calcium and it measures magnesium, and it would allow you via dosing pumps to actually add what your tank needs on the spot. So basically you would really automate that. It's measuring the alkalinity, it says that it's too low, and you can start buffering alkalinity solution via a dosing pump. And having it measure 4 times a day, you can really get that as precise as possible. If you're more thinking, I would like to just measure it once a day, there's nothing wrong with that, and that's a great idea. Matter of fact, so I always make these crazy goals. That's an upcoming video, by the way, about setting goals, but I'm going to just jump into this topic really quick. A year ago, I said, you know what I want to do this year? This year, I'm going to do push-ups. Doesn't require going to the gym, and I'm going to add 1 push-up every single day. So at the end of the year, I'll have to do 365 of them. Well, I got to about 60, and that was it. I just lost my inspiration, or got lazy, or put it off, or forgot about it and remembered 4 days later, and by then I'd missed a few, and it just kind of fell apart, and I didn't proceed. And so that's just an example. Then I thought a few days ago, what if I were to measure the alkalinity on my tank every single day with my test kit? I mean, that's so much better than me measuring once every 2 weeks, which seems to be happening. I'm really trying to do it every Saturday, but it seems like, unfortunately, I'll do the live stream. My goal is to go do that. Something comes up, and I'm thinking, okay, I'll get it on Sunday. Next thing I know, it's Tuesday. So I was thinking, what if I did the measurements every single day for, the entire year, and I can put it in Reef Trace, and I can actually watch those numbers pretty closely. Well, that's not automated. I mean, it's completely manual. Number 1, I got to do the test, and then number 2, I got to enter it into the app, and then the app, of course, will make the graph, which is kind of neat. But there's different brands of alkalinity monitors on the market already. CoralView is selling one. There's a... sorry. See? Difference between live stream and me having time to Google each item and then say it all nice and fluidly and cleanly. But there's about 4 or 5 on the market right now, and everyone was rushing to the market because they wanted to corner it while there was zero competition. So when the Trident comes out later this spring, I believe, people are going to be trying it out. They'll be testing it, and Neptune Systems will tweak it, and then that will be the first device that I'm aware of that measures alkalinity, magnesium, and calcium as, like I said, at least once a day. I think most people are going to do it 2 to 4 times a day, and then they replenish the calibration solution. But it draws the water right from the tank, does the test, spits out the result into the Apex controller, and you can just look on your phone, your iPad, your computer, and you can see what the results were for that day, or you can track it for the last week. And you could literally only monitor it. That's it. You just want to know what the readings are, or it can actually be you could communicate with the dose pump, and you could increase the dose rate a little bit or decrease the dose rate, so that way your numbers are very, very steady and stable. So having some kind of a monitoring system is super exciting. Not cheap at all. Not cheap. Some of these devices are floating around between $6,000, $600, $1,000, $1,500. That's kind of the price range for having some really high-end, new-to-market gear. And that's on top of buying, the controller itself that controls your tank. So, anyway, that's my thoughts on it. I think it's awesome. I love the idea. I hate the price being so high. I wish everyone had it, because the more we can really control these numbers, obviously the healthier our livestock will be. All right. Let me see. One person said, I have too many questions. I'm new to the hobby. I'm going to tell you, watch my channel. Go look through all the videos. There's 160 on here now, I think. You don't have to watch them all. But watch some of the ones I put on my playlists, for example. Those would be good ones. And through osmosis, it'll all start making more and more sense the more you watch. And of course, go to melevsreef.com. There's over 1,000 articles on my website. And any topic you're wondering about, you can type it in the search box, just ask a few words, and it'll give you any link to a blog, an article, a video, a product review. If I've talked about it and it's on my website, you'll find it. Matter of fact, while you're searching, if you're just using Google, you can type in, how much carbon do I need for my aquarium, and then put the word Melev at the end and hit enter, and you will find the video to my carbon, and you will find my write-up on carbon on my website. So anything you Google, add the word Melev, M-E-L-E-V, to the end. For those of you new to the channel, my name or my nickname is actually an abbreviation of my full name, which is Mark E. Levinson. So M-E, Mark E, and then L-E-V for Levinson. That's where Melev comes from. And Melev's Reef, well, because I have a reef. All right. Let's see. I will not be talking about calcium reactors because that is a separate video, but I'm excited to do that in the very near future. I am going to say, since we are on January 27th, that it will be in February. Can't believe I talked about it so long ago. Someone asked about Prodibio, and I thought that's a good one because I have been dosing Prodibio since 2011 in my tank. So Prodibio is a whole slew of different elements. There's iodine, there's strontium. I didn't grab all of them. This is Coral Vits. This is Reef Booster. And then this is the BioClean kit, which is an actual half-and-half kit. I hope both halves are in here for this moment. Yes. So in here, you've got Biodigest, and you have Bioptim. And this one says Pro on it. These are all the Pro vials. These are the big ones. And these are rated for 250 gallons per vial. And the general rule is, and there's a video about this on my channel, so you can go and watch the entire, it was a presentation I gave at MACNA a few years ago. But the general rule is you cannot overdose Prodibio. Now, like I showed you, all these big vials, and I bet a lot of you have smaller aquariums. They have smaller vials here too. This is the only package I could find today really quickly before this live stream. So these are the normal size vials, and this is some strontium. Each of this size vial treats 50 gallons. Make sure I told you that correctly. Yeah, 50 gallons. They say down to 30. So they're recommending between, on the front of this particular package says between 30 and 250 gallons, which sounds like a huge range. But basically, in my head, I think automatically this size is going to be for 50 gallons per vial. So if you had a 100-gallon tank, you need 2 of this. And they're really easy to use. I wanted to show you. The only thing I didn't bring over here was airline tubing, because that's pretty important. And none of these packages have any airline tubing in them. So I'm going to risk it, and I'm going to risk my life for you people. I think I'm going to switch cameras and maybe point this thing down. So let me do that really quick. Point this down. Let's see if you can see that. Is that pretty viewable? I think it is. All right, so this is a standard vial. the strontium. And the way it works, it's got an argon gas inside this, so that way it won't spoil. It's stored and it basically lasts indefinitely. These aren't something that is going to expire while it's sitting on your shelf. And you only have to use it every 15 days. So basically you dose 2 times a month. Now to get it out of here, all you got to do is break off this end and then break off this end. So I wanted to show you how that works because I know it's confusing to some. You just snap off an end, and normally you put airline tubing over the end, and you grab the tubing, and you just snap. Wow, okay. I really wish I had airline tubing right now. Okay, that's it. So now my little pieces come off, and here's the open vial. Now I'm going to show you that nothing comes out, even as you shake. I mean, you could shake the heck out of it, and nothing comes out because of the vacuum at the top. See how there's an air pocket at the top there? So now if I break off the other end, watch really closely because it's going to come right out really fast. So yeah, that's it. That's your dose right there. It already poured out. Can you see some of that liquid right here? What am I doing here? I'm trying to see what you can see. Anyway, that was the strontium dose for roughly 50 gallons, and you'd only put it in your tank once every 15 days. It's super easy to dose, and then you throw away the glass vial. Some of you may be asking, why do I even need this stuff? It's a way of dosing something to your tank. It's not carbon dosing, it's more of a bacterial dosing. Bioptim is the, let me find it in English here, I want to say it correctly for you. Bioptim enhances the bacteria's efficiency, and Biodigest is the biological cleaning bacteria for your tank. So using equal amounts of both halves in your tank, you're constantly adding new bacteria and you're helping to consume waste in the aquarium. And this works for tanks that don't run skimmers, that are just without a sump. You can use it in nano tanks, just use the smaller vials. They even have a nano line of these vials that are really small. But normally I would just go with and they also sell like a multi-pack where you get one box and it's called, I think it's called Reef Kit. And there's 5 flavors of stuff inside, and you would have enough to dose for several weeks, and then you get another box. So this is sold on Premium Aquatics for sure. It may be sold on Amazon. And there's other vendors, of course. Marine Depot probably has it. BRS may have it. I didn't double check that. I usually get mine when I'm at Mackinac, when I'm standing right there in the Perdibio booth. But I've been using it for years in my tank, every 15 days. I usually dose on the 5th and on the 20th. And so I always tell people, dose with me on that day. And it just seems to be a good date to remember for me. All right. I see a question that popped up here in the chat. I'm going to answer it really quickly. Does UV prevent STN, which is slow tissue necrosis, or RTN, which is rapid tissue necrosis? I have a UV on a healthy 90-gallon mixed reef. Should I keep it running or am I just wasting electricity? Well, first of all, Frederick, the question is how big is your UV in relation to your tank? Because if you had like a little turbo twist that's rated for 25 gallons and it's sitting on a 90 gallon or it's sitting on a 180 gallon, it's not a lot that it can do. And the way a UV works, you've got a UV light inside a bigger housing that the water flows through. And the light is basically irradiating anything that goes through so that water comes in and then comes out the other end irradiated. And that might not be the word that you're supposed to use professionally. It's my word, okay? And basically what happens is any kind of bacteria that went through that UV sterilizer is killed. Good bacteria, bad bacteria, the UV sterilizer has no idea. It just kills it all. If there's algae spores in the water, kills them. UV sterilizers can help clarify the water on a tank. And I have personally never used one in any of my tanks since I've been in the hobby, and I've been in this hobby right at 20 years. And I've told people in the past, if they want to use a UV sterilizer, I'd use it on a hospital tank. You get this new fish, it's got parasites, you put it through quarantine, and you're like, oh, I really have to treat this fish. I'm going to move it to a hospital tank, and I would put the UV sterilizer on that. So any free-floating parasites would be killed. That would be my thought. There was a family in the local area that had me drive out recently, last year, and they had a problem with the tank getting too hot. They had a massive UV sterilizer. It was one of the biggest ones I'd seen on a home tank. And of course it had a huge pump to feed the water to it, and that giant bulb was heating the water of the tank to the point where the tank was too hot at night, and they had these big cooling fans blowing on the tank. So the tank was loud, all because of the UV sterilizer. So what I told them is always keep the water running through the UV all the time. Just have it running. But only turn on the light for a certain amount of hours per day. So I suggested, since it was making the tank so warm, at the time I was saying, just run the light during the daytime, and that way at night, it's not heating the tank, and these fans aren't going to come on, and you can sleep comfortably next to your aquarium. So I would try to avoid running it 24/7 unless there's a need where you discover your tank needs it. For example, there's a big algae bloom. All the water in your tank is essentially turned green or cloudy white, kind of opaque. Running a UV sterilizer could help clear it more quickly. But do you need it for your tank? And will it help with, the first question you asked, will it help with Stn or RTN? I'm going to say I don't think so. The fact is that Stn and RTN are when the coral is in trouble. There's something happening on the coral. And whatever's on the coral is not going to be going through a UV sterilizer, unfortunately. For example, and someone else asked me to talk about coral disease today, so I'm going into that topic right now. I'm transitioning. Let's talk about brown jelly disease for a moment. Brown jelly disease is called that because it looks like brown jelly on your coral. It's specifically, you see it on LPS corals. So hammers, frog spawns, torches, frammers, which is a combination of a frog spawn hammer. What else? Any Euphilia corals, they typically get brown jelly disease. And what happens is this weird goo that's brownish seems to just take over the colony. And the only thing you can do when that happens is cut off that area that's infected, and don't let that brown jelly get anywhere else in your tank. Matter of fact, if it was me and I discovered a coral covered in brown, starting to be covered in brown jelly disease, I would take a bowl and I would lower it into the tank so it fills the tank water, and I would very cautiously slide the coral in. Should I take this call? And then I would go ahead and I would lift the bowl out with the coral and the brown jelly so it doesn't disperse into the system. That's a really important thing to avoid, because otherwise, if it lands somewhere else, it's going to start killing that coral. And you don't want that to happen. If the coral is affixed and you can't lift it out of the tank, you could very cautiously siphon the brown jelly off the colony, but really the coral has to come out of the tank because you're going to want to dip it in something to help it heal. So let's say you have an LPS coral, which well, maybe you don't. An LPS coral is a large polyp stony. Let's just pretend it has 3 arms sticking up. And here's a polyp, and here's a polyp, and here's a polyp. And it's all beautiful, and suddenly this one's closed down tight, and you see this horrible jelly on it. And these two are open and happy. You could cut right here, and it will break really easily. It'll just crumble between your bone cutters, and you can break that piece off and get it out of the tank. Or if you have to, you wiggle the coral loose from the rockwork and take it out. Or you cut it off the rockwork if you must, and then re-putty it when you're done. But you don't want the brown jelly to get elsewhere in the tank. And once you've got it in a bowl away from the tank, you can take a turkey baster and you can kind of blow off the coral, trying to get it clean from all angles and get that brown jelly off. And you'll see the goo going everywhere in the bowl or bucket you're using. And I would be doing this in the kitchen sink. Number 1 rule when working on your stuff, close your mouth. Don't leave your mouth hanging open because you might squirt something into your mouth. Close that mouth, okay? It's really important. You'd be shocked how many times you do that. You're just cutting some zoanthids and squirt in the mouth or squirt in the eye. So think. But yeah, brown jelly is not toxic to us. I've never heard of anyone getting sick by handling and dealing with brown jelly. But if it gets on other corals, it just seems to wipe them out. So that's one you want to pull out. And then the cleaner I would recommend you put it in is Revive. Revive is by Two Little Fishies. It's a bottle about this tall. Smells exactly like Pine Sol. Says on the side of the bottle, do not clean floors with this stuff. And it says on the bottle, it's a coral cleaner. It's not a parasite murderer like the Bayer insecticide that people use from Lowe's to dip corals and kill all parasites. It's a coral cleaner. It helps the coral start healing. So I would recommend owning some Revive. And if you can't find it anywhere, I sell it on my website. Easy to find. It's in the dry goods section. So I get to transition to the next topic. Someone asked about coral placement in the tank and how to affix it. And with the coral placement, let's say we took that LPS coral out of the tank, and now we want to put it back into the tank. Then you would need to secure it somehow to the rockwork. Now, one method is to put a big zip tie around it. And if you were to use a zip tie, then you want to make sure it's a zip tie that doesn't have a metal little, I don't know what that thing is called, a tang. You know, the part where you push the zip tie through and the little part that holds on. There are some that are made 100% plastic, and the majority are made with a little metal thing inside that as you push it through and it's making the zipping sound, the metal part is biting in so it can't retract and remove. So you want to make sure that you're using an all-plastic zip tie in your tank to hold corals in place. And that's useful with LPS corals because they have this big, bony skeleton finger to wrap around a rock. So I would suggest that. If you want to use glue, my favorite is cyanoacrylate by Ecotech. And they call it CG, which stands for coral glue. Pretty easy to understand. The reason I like CG over all the other ones you can buy, and everyone loves to tell you, oh, just buy this at the dollar store. Yes, you totally can buy super glue gel at the dollar store or at Home Depot or at Harbor Freight. And they have these little tiny tubes that you get 1 or 2 squeezes and it's empty. I get a big bottle of CG from Ecotech and it lasts forever. It doesn't clog. When I'm not using it, I put it in the refrigerator. And then when I'm ready to use it, I take it out of the fridge and I can squeeze the bottle and I can use the same bottle for 18 months. I'm not constantly having to break open a little tiny foil thing and, puncture the tip and get 1 squirt. Especially if you're working with a lot of frags, you're going to need 10 or 15 of them. But you might say, yeah, but it cost me $1 and I got 50 of them. I get it. I'm just telling you, I like CG glue from Ecotech. Everyone has taste. They all pick what they like. And then the other thing I like is the putty from DD Solutions, which is what I always call the Deltec putty. And that putty is purple in color. It looks like coralline. And you can use the putty. You need it in your hands. I always say put on rubber gloves first. And the reason I say put on rubber gloves when you're kneading putty, the 2-part putties to make it into one type, is because a speaker many, many years ago was doing a fragging demonstration, a workshop. And he had been doing these workshops for years. And one day he was just kneading some putty in his basement, getting ready to affix corals, in his tank. And he ended up in the emergency room. The reason being is that, he had been kneading putty for years and finally his body couldn't resist it. Whatever it was got into his bloodstream and he went in, I guess it was probably something like anaphylactic shock. And they had to treat him, and get him back on his feet. And immediately, so at that workshop, he put on the gloves and warned us what happened to him. So I'm telling you this so you don't even have to deal with it. Just put on some rubber gloves and then take off 2 equal parts of the putty. And there's an article on my website that is the DD Putty product review. And you can see the pictures of the putty, how I kneaded it together, how I made a ball, and then how I affixed a coral in my rock work. And basically you just take that piece of putty and you can put it on the end of your frag plug and you can press it into the rock work and kind of use your fingers like you would do with Play-Doh to make sure it's holding on nice and tightly. If for some reason you're not having luck with the putty and the putty's not cooperating properly, you can do the Oreo sandwich method. And what that entails is you have your putty, first of all, you've mixed up, and then you put a crater in there and you can fill it with super glue gel, press the coral into that. So now the coral is gluing to the putty. And then you can put glue on the back of the putty and you can glue it to the rock and kind of force the putty. And basically that Oreo cookie method, it's not going anywhere. Works great. I've done that in the past as well. It just depends on the circumstance, what you're trying to glue into place. Now, whenever you have a new coral, the question is, where do I put it in my tank? And I always tell everyone, put the coral on the sand bed. I know it was high-end. I know it was this beautiful SPS. I know SPS need a lot of light. But it came from whatever existing system it was in. It's in shock. I mean, there's no way it can't be. It had different water. It had different light. It had different neighbors. It had different flow than what you have in your tank. So you got this brand new reefling that you're adding to your reef. I would take the plug and I would push it in the sand bed and let it stand up and just let it get used to your tank. I wouldn't even handle it. Others would say, well, of course they'd say dip it first, which I didn't even say. So I'm saying, yes, any new coral you get, always dip it. But then as soon as I've dipped it in some kind of a solution to kill parasites, then I put it into the sand bed and I leave it alone. I don't want to handle it. I don't want to squeeze it. I don't want to cut it off the plug. I want to leave it alone so it doesn't die. That's my method, and it works very well for me. Very rarely do I get a brand new frag and put it in my sand bed and watch it turn into nothing. But I do see people that get their brand new frag. They're proud of it, but they're terrified of AIDS. That's my joke. I always say don't put AIDS in my tank. That's why we dip everything preventively. So you get this brand new frag you're really proud of, and you put in this toxic solution to kill parasites. The coral's already super stressed. Then you take it and you cut off the frag plug, and you're holding it by the part where the polyps are, and you're stressing it. And then you're trying to glue it to a new spot. Now you got this chemical reaction, which the glue could be heating up, literally making it hotter where the coral's touching. So you're kind of burning some polyps in some of this tissue and skin. So my recommendation is just dip it, rinse it off really good, and then press it down in the sand bed and get your hands off it and leave it alone for a week. Just let it heal. Let it recover. And then after a week, you can move it up to a new spot in the tank, and then maybe in a couple more weeks, move it up a little higher to its ultimate place in your tank. Various corals do better in high light. Typically, we say the SPS corals, the really colorful sticks that don't move, those are called small polyp stonies. We like to have them near the top of the rockwork, and they make these beautiful bushes, the shape of an apple, the shape of a pear. It might table out flat. It might go all scraggly. There's staghorns, and there is ephlos, and acropora, and montipora. And there's montipora that plates, and then there's montipora that is called digitata, which makes little skinny branches. And all of those you would want to go ahead and be able to put in different places in your tank to get a beautiful reef. But I don't recommend putting it through hell the day you get it, is my point. Is someone spamming? All right, we'll hide them. Sorry about that, guys. Let's see. Another topic that was asked for me to discuss, because I have talked about coral fragging and tank placement. Okay, one person asked, Brock asked about fragging things like acans, favias, things that aren't branching. They're really more like a stony coral. They're just a stone. With those, I would just recommend all right, I removed another spammer. Sorry, guys. So fun. With the stony type corals, like a maze coral or a brain coral, it's just a big solid rock. You're going to want to push it through a bandsaw. And I have a bandsaw video on my channel that you can watch. And basically it's a table, and it's got a huge circular diamond-tipped blade that is running at however many RPMs it is. I don't know, 1,1500 RPMs. And you put a little salt water in the base, so as the blade is coming up, it's covered in salt water, and you would just push your coral through it. And I'm doing all these hand gestures, but you can watch the video where I actually show me cutting corals, and you would want to use a bandsaw. If you can't afford a bandsaw because it's a few $100s, you could use a Dremel tool, but it's going to be really rough on the coral. And the other thing is, a Dremel, it has a, I guess it would be the arbor, and then you affix a round flat blade. It looks like the size of a quarter, and it's a diamond wheel. Well, if you have, let's pretend this button here is my diamond tip blade, and I'm trying to cut through a coral that's this thick. As you can, and then there's an arbor in the center, so you've got a post sticking to the middle, so you can't even push it all the way through. You can only go halfway until you hit the arbor, and then you'd have to do halfway from below, and run a groove underneath, run a groove along the top, and then possibly break it on the slice you've created. So that's a less ideal situation. You could use bone cutters and kind of whittle your way through, but you're really harsh on the polyps. And so what I would suggest is that the bandsaw, it's awesome. And you know what? I waited for years to buy it. And I actually bought it for myself as a gift. I went to one of the Macknas, and there it was on sale. And I just said, you know what? I'm buying that as a gift to me. And I don't use it very often, but when I need to use it, it's amazing. Like I said, it's about $400. It might be $379, $425. The blade alone is $80. So you want to be very careful not to break the blade because you got to buy another blade. And if you're planning a big session of cutting coral, you might want to have an extra blade ready. One person suggests an angle grinder with a cutting blade. All right, I guess you're attacking a huge colony. Most of us are dealing with smaller things, and especially acans. You know, it has like 8 polyps, and you want to frag off 2 or 3 polyps because you're trying to recoup some money and you want to sell a few. And you would want to cut along the margins. You want to literally cut the shape of each polyp and then glue it to a rock. Richie says that some LFSs have bandsaws that you can use. I don't know, does that mean you could take it home or you have to bring your coral to their shop to use it? Please let us know. That'd be great. All right. Rashaw asks about the advantages and disadvantages of wet-dry sumps. And also, additionally asked the location and functionality, the possibility of compartment use, sizing, oversizing benefits. Basically, you're kind of asking about my entire sump presentation that I do. I have an entire sump talk. I've talked about sumps quite a bit on my channel. I don't talk about wet dries, and that's how your question started. So I'm thinking you're thinking about wet dries the entire time. So I'm mentioning to you, typically we don't use wet dry systems on our reef tanks. People do use wet dry systems on their fish only system because they're trying to convert the ammonia into nitrate as quickly as possible, and a fish only system can handle higher nitrate. Fish can swim in 60, 80 or more nitrate and don't seem to be as affected. It's not great for them, but you know they can handle it better. Corals definitely don't like it. The reason we don't use a wet dry is because as the water trickles through the bioballs, the water converting ammonia straight to nitrate is just adding nitrate to the water all the time. Every drip of water that goes through is adding a little bit more nitrate. And you know, you're going to hit a certain threshold where it's going to be too much. Now, of course, every time you do a big water change, you're removing nitrate because nitrate is always in the water. It's not like glued to the walls like bacteria. It's not like on the rock or on a coral. It's always in the water. If you do a 50% water change on your tank, like if I were to take my tank, it's 400 gallons, and I took out 200 gallons of water today and put 200 gallons of new salt water in there, my nitrate will be cut in half. Literally 50% water change will cut your nitrate in half. And if you have a tank that has really high nitrate, you need to find out where it's coming from. So if you have a wet dry system, it's always adding nitrate, so that's where it's coming from. If you're always feeding your tank, it's coming from that. If you have bio wheels, like some hang on the back filters have this wheel that spins and it looks white and it looks like an accordion fabric, and as it's churning through the air, it's designed, again, to convert ammonia to nitrate. That's why people use hang on back filters on hospital tanks and on quarantine tanks, because it's a really simple filter, but it adds nitrate. So first thing you do, of course, is figure out what's adding nitrate and stop those. And then, of course, do your water changes to bring them down. But the question about when to use a wet dry, I'd say that anyone that's interested in reef keeping will not run a wet dry. They just don't. Now, can you convert a wet dry sump into a normal sump? It basically essentially removing the wet dry section and having a higher water level within the sump? Yes. And talking about sumps is an entire presentation. I pretty much talk for an hour when I give that talk. I'll go through my videos and see if I haven't already discussed this as a full-length video, because I feel like I have, but maybe I haven't. It's possible that I've given that presentation at MACNA, and BRS Videos has my video on their channel, so you might be able to find that as well. Okay. I'm going to talk about Stn and RTN for a minute, because, and I'll tell you what that is. Stn is slow tissue necrosis, and RTN is rapid tissue necrosis. Necrosis being death. So you have this acropora, and the very bottom of it turns white. Now, why does it turn white? Could be a couple of reasons. It could be it's in total shade. The colony has gotten so big that everything underneath gets no light and it just turns white. It's just pale. My big, beautiful purple Milka colony that we took out last September, and Dwayne cut it down to size. When we put it back in the tank, the whole lower area was white, and people were saying, why is that so white? Because that was in so much shade, but it was alive. And when you looked at it, there was tons of white polyps coming out of the white skeleton. It hadn't had any color. Well, now the tank's been, what should we say, healing from that big event for 4 months, and that colony is pretty much top to bottom purple again. All that white area has definitely gotten some color back. But RTN and STN is usually describing complete death. It's just skeleton, it's turned white, there's no life on it, no polyps are extending. You look with magnifying glass, or you take a picture with your Nikon or your Canon, and you zoom in on your monitor so you can really get a good look. And you can just see it's completely dead skeleton. And then within a few weeks, that white skeleton has turned brown. It might even turn to green, and then algae may even start growing on it. And it's definitely not alive anymore. When STN or RTN happens, most people want to do something about it. They want to jump in and they want to save what's left. And I understand that feeling, but I don't actually do that. I've done it in the past. I would take the coral out, I'd cut off all the dead parts, and I'd put it back in my tank and pray that the rest of the colony didn't die. But again, that's that whole interaction where you're handling it and you're cutting it and you're stressing it, and you might be dipping it, and then you put it back in your tank and the darn thing has just gone through so much that you've pushed it past what it can handle. So typically when I see a coral in distress, I kind of leave it alone, and I definitely keep an eye on it. And if it keeps trying to spread, I'll get in there. I'll interact. I'll cut out the dead and try to avoid any of that migrating to other colonies. And it's not like brown jelly. STN doesn't just jump from colony to colony. But if you have two colonies touching and it's STNing, which is slowly dying over the days, until it finally hits this one and then starts working its way down the next one because they were touching, that's not good. Also, I'd like to mention too, if two corals are touching, they may be killing each other defensively, and that's not STN or RTN, that's chemical warfare. And if you were to watch those two corals late at night, you might see all these little tendrils and webs where they're chemically fighting each other, trying to eat the other guy. They're both eating each other one, trying to see who wins, and of course one wins and stays completely lifelike, and the other one, a whole bunch of tissue is gone overnight, and it's shocking. I've got a spot in my tank where I've got this beautiful pink and blue lobophilia next to a maize coral. And one night, I was going by the tank with a flashlight, and I could see the lobo had spit out all these mesenterial fibers onto the maize coral and was just devouring it. And if you've ever watched any of these Nat Geo late night footage of corals, you'll see corals fighting each other. If you want to look for coral warfare, just type it in YouTube, and I'm sure you'll find hundreds of videos where people show a picture of a coral eating a coral. So that's not STN, that's not RTN, that's just literally them duking it out, trying to get space. That's why we try to put our colonies separated from each other, where there's a little bit of space and they can grow, but they don't touch each other. But back to STN, if it's slowly dying, you want to make sure it's not close enough to another one to where it can kind of migrate, so you would cut it off. Rapid tissue necrosis is pretty much overnight. You will have this colony, it's doing fine, the word fine we love to use, and then the next day, 50% of it's gone. And the next day, the whole colony's gone. And you're just like, what the heck happened? And of course, you get all your test kits and you measure everything, and you get mad because you're thinking how long it took to get that large, and now it's gone, and whatever investment you had in that coral, it's gone, and it cost you money. So it hurts. But the more mature your tank is, and that's so important in this hobby. And I've read threads where people ask, what do you call a mature tank? How do you describe it? How would you describe it to someone new in the hobby? And it's actually really hard to explain. But essentially, it comes down to the tank has been running for quite a while. And you as a hobbyist have really matured in understanding how your tank works. And you can tell at a glance when something's not quite right. That's what I call a mature tank. And my reef was 3 years and 10 months old when Dwayne and I pulled out all those corals out of the tank, cut down some to small pieces, to put back in my tank, gave away a ton of frags that day, and, did a big water change. And I haven't had any corals die from that September event. I have just been posting pictures on a regular basis of growth, growth, growth. No STN, no RTN, just beautiful color. Tank is very mature. It's now 4 years and a couple of months old, maybe 3 months old, I think. I think we're at 51 months on February 10th. So it's kind of nice to realize, hey, I haven't watched anything die in my tank whatsoever. Every coral in my tank is alive and happy, or, relatively happy. They're never perfect. And all my fish are happy. That's a nice realization to have. And it's, I can't say pat yourself on the back because a lot of it is luck. There's a lot we do. We get good gear. We pay close attention, but something can happen. The power goes out. Some kind of chemical gets introduced into your tank, and everything just goes to crap. Or some piece of important equipment goes out, and you don't catch it soon enough. So, there's some luck involved. We always need to keep an eye on things, but we have to kind of watch for obstacles and try to avoid those. All right. Let's see how we're doing on time. We're almost an hour in. Let's see. One more. Someone asked if I would talk about ICP tests, and I really can't say anything specific about it because I haven't done it yet. I keep saying I'm going to do it, and I just never get around to it. So once I get around to it, I will definitely share the results of my water with all of you so we can see how my numbers are doing. I'm actually a little terrified to actually have that kind of analysis done. But hey, it's just like going to the doctor and she wants to measure all your blood, and you're just like, oh my God, you want good numbers, but what is she going to come back with? So I can't. ICP is just a way of taking a sample of your water and shipping it to a place. Unique Corals was offering this. What's that other one? Well, type in ICP test in Google, and it'll show you the 2 or 3 brands that exist that you can do. Triton does it. And I feel like Aquamedic might be heading that way, because in the past they were doing aquarium water testing, AWT.com. So ICP is where they take the water, they blast it. I mean, it's crazy. It sounds like a nuclear reaction. And then they measure what elements are left after all the water has been destroyed. And then you get measurements for, alkalinity, calcium, magnesium. But then it'll be things like boron and manganese and lithium. I mean, stuff we never measure for. So that has been happening for the last few years. And like I said, I still haven't done it. I've read articles about it. I read Randy Holmes Farley's big write-up about the test he did, because he is our chemist wizard. And he did the test, and then he basically typed up a review of every piece of that test, and that was very interesting for me to see what he thought, because it's so far over my head that I really wanted to get his gut reaction. Did he believe in it? Did he think it was accurate? Did he disagree with it? That was a really good write-up. And I'm going to hit refresh on this thing in case anyone else added some more suggestions really quick. And then we're going to wrap this up so that I can get more things done. I mean, this is my first cup of coffee. Doug asked about clownfish anemone care, do's and don'ts. And I have a 15-minute video that's super popular on my channel about anemone care, bubble tips specifically. And it doesn't really go into the clownfish care so much, although they're obviously a big feature. So I would watch that. I'm going to be doing an update on that tank. And I'm going to actually show how we added all those clowns to that tank a few years ago. And that will be the new review. And I think I'm going to really go in depth in that topic, because I think it's a really good one. And I think it's a really important one, because a lot of people have this this desire to combine a lot of different clowns together in one tank, and they expect it to work long term. And in a nutshell, I'm going to tell you it doesn't work, having a lot of different clowns. If you can get a harem of one specific species, like 6, 12, 15, depending on the size of the aquarium, 6-month-old juveniles, all of the exact same brood, like the mother clownfish, and the male, of course, they lay the eggs, and then a breeder bred this huge ball of clowns, and then that breeder takes out a handful of whatever that is, 15 fish that are 6 months old, so about an inch long, and you could get all of those and put them in a tank. You could enjoy them for a few years. Well, I'll say 2 years. Mine have been going on almost 3 years now. I feel like February was when I added them, so it's a great time to do that update video. And in that time, they have grown larger, and they've gotten a little aggressive, and I've had to pull 3 out that were just being tortured by the rest. They were swimming way up at the top, and I could put my hand in there, and the little clown would retreat into my hand for safety from the big, mean clowns, and I just lifted my hand out of the water and went to my frag tank and dropped it in there. And the funny thing is, those little guys that were so abused, they were so picked on, when I put them in that other tank and I add other fish, they go pick on those fish. It's like they learned a bad habit from these guys. So putting together 15 clownfish, for example, and especially if you I want a bullet hole, and I want a white rush, and I want a Paula Abdul, I'm just throwing together names, and you put them all together, that's not a guaranteed long term. And when people say, oh, but look at the BRS video, I did look at the BRS video, and guess what they did? They'd put all of the same clown in that tank, and then when I talked to him about it in person, he said, yeah, that's been really hard, and no, they don't all make it. So, and feel free to ask them if you don't believe me. You can go talk to them on the BRS channel. It is hard, but I will do a whole video, and I want to talk about that topic. I think it's a great one, and I definitely want to get the Fiji video out. Okay. Let's see. Yes. Yeah, I'm saying I'm doing the update video on the anemone cube. I think you guys want that. I kind of want to put a new light on that tank. It's been under the same light for years, and I'd like to put a new one. I think that'd be kind of nice for that video, too, to kind of say we're going a new direction, or at least more modern. I got a question from Mario Flores saying, help please, dosing or calcium reactor? Well, what I'd say is dose right now, because my calcium reactor video is not out yet. And once you see that video, you can decide for yourself if that's the direction you want to go. It comes down to a couple of factors. How big is your system? Is it economical for us? Let's say you had a small tank, like 60 gallons, with a little sump underneath, and you wanted to run a calcium reactor. Can you? Absolutely. But it may feel really expensive for a 60-gallon tank. But when I set up my 280-gallon tank back in 2004, I absolutely ran that with a calcium reactor because it was a big water volume, and a calcium reactor adds alkalinity and calcium to the water 24 hours a day, nonstop, and every few months. I'll go into that in the video, but every few months you have to replenish the media. You have to double check the CO2 tank is filled, because it uses itself up. It's being used. And you might say, wow, that's a lot of money. I can just dose for much less. If you're manually dosing, you can dose for almost nothing. If you're trying to buy dosing pumps, or you're trying to use a controller to control the dosing pumps, the dollars start adding up, and you start saying, you know what? They're almost apples to apples in money. It's just I'm spending it all at once versus kind of acquiring this and acquiring that and acquiring this when it comes to dosing. So the reason I'm doing the calcium reactor video is because I want to do one. And I talked to Marine Depot months ago, and I said, can you guys send me a calcium reactor for my video? And they did. They sent it to me. And then I even talked with Robert, who does all their videos, and he runs that calcium reactor. And I said, look, can you kind of walk me through this one? Because it doesn't look anything like the one I've had for the last 13 years. And I am going to be putting that calcium reactor on my frag tank because I just cannot get stable enough water in there because I'm not a good doser. I just don't like it. And that frag tank has been dealing with swings for 2 years. And just before my trip away to Arizona, I measured calcium was 600 Magnesium, I think, was 1,500, and alkalinity was fine. It was a good number. I think it was 10. And I thought, man, so I turned off the calcium, I turned off the magnesium. I was like, and why did it get so high? Because I didn't measure the week before. And, you know, I'm not being good about that tank. And with a calcium reactor, it's going to be far more stable for me, a guy that's been using calcium reactors so long. I just want one on that system as well. So even though that's not a big tank, it's going to make my life a lot better, a lot easier, and I'm going to be able to showcase how it works and how to install it, and it'll be a really good video. So that's what I'm saying. Wait until the video comes out, and that'll be in February. Guys, it's an hour. I'm going to stop here. Thank you so much for tuning in every week. It's Saturdays at 2 o'clock. I don't know any reason why there won't be a stream next week. I'm pretty sure there is. I can't think of anything coming up. So that's happening. I do want to mention there's a frag swap happening for DFW Mass. So after this video is published, you know, when it's an actual video, not a live stream, I'll put the link to that in the video description down below. And that's going to be in February. I feel like it's around the 20th. And that'll be in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I did tell you about this one happening. I'm going to give Josh another plug here. This one's happening February 3rd in Florida, in the town of Lakeland, and that is going to be a big event that he's estimating about 1,000 people are going to show up. So are you one of the 1,000? Are you going to get some frags that day? Because you're going to have the choice of getting all these beautiful zoanthids that people sell. In Florida, the cool thing is you might even get to get different macroalgae, cleanup crew critters, because they'll show up with snails and emerald crabs and nudibranchs and gorgonians. I know that's not a cleanup crew. And all the fun things. You know, you might see clams for sale. You know, I mean, it's not just frags. Sometimes breeders show up and bring their little clownfish. You might get some new clowns. So, yeah, go to Frag Swap. As a matter of fact, I think I did a poll on YouTube where I was asking if you go to Frag Swaps. If I didn't, I'm going to do a new poll. But if you're not, oh, I know what it is. On my melevsreef page on Facebook, this one right here. On that page, I recently showed a beautiful video that was published by Ecotech Marine about a frag swap that took place, I believe, in New York. Boy, was it filmed like, you know, Scorsese. I mean, it was so well done. So go watch that video because it will give you the real feel for a frag swap. It didn't feel cheesy. It didn't feel pressured. They just filmed it from all the right angles. It was gorgeous. I mean, I wish I could film videos as nicely as what I saw that production company did. They showed the people and, you know, you had the feel of what a frag swap was. So go find that on my Facebook page. I just posted, you know, a few days ago. It'd be easy. Scroll down a little bit because I've been traveling. I've hardly posted. And check out that video. You'll love it. And you'll want to go to a frag swap. And if you haven't signed up for MACNA, it's coming up September, I think it's 5th through 7th, or 7th through 9th. It's going to be in Las Vegas this year. If you haven't signed up yet, sign up now, because every month you wait, the longer you delay, the higher the price becomes for the entry fee. And if you just buy it now, you just pay for it, then it's done, then you just have to come up with money for the hotel room, and you can split hotel rooms with other people. If you like, and you got to come up with a flight. And flights to Vegas typically are cheap, so that would be great, and you could really enjoy it. I'll be there, of course, and they've asked me to speak this year. So I'll be doing a topic one of the days at MACNA this year in Las Vegas. So that's this September. I'll put links for that also in the description below, so that way you don't have to Google it, because it's so much work to Google. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend, and I will get something published during the week, I promise. And then we'll have another live stream next Saturday at 2 o'clock. Bye, guys.